Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson. We're continuing our study of the Gospel of Mark, and we're in chapter 6, verse 30, and we're going to read the feeding of the 5,000, which is full of detail that we don't have elsewhere. So let's read this in verse 30. The apostles gathered together with Jesus, and they reported to him all they'd done on their missionary trip. And he said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a lonely place, a desolated place, and let's rest a while." For there were many people coming and going, and they didn't even have time to eat. And they went away in a boat to a desolate place by themselves, but the people saw them going, and many recognized them, and they ran there together on foot from all the cities and got there ahead of them. And disembarking, Jesus, saw the great multitude, and he felt compassion for them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. And when it was already quite late, his disciples came up to him and said, "The place is desolate, and it's already quite late. Send them away, that they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat." But he answered and said to them, "You give them something to eat." And they said to him, "Shall we go and spend 200 denarii on bread and give them something to eat?" And he said to them, "How many loaves do you have? Go look." And they found out they had 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he commanded them all to recline by groups on the green grass. And they all reclined in companies of hundreds and of 50s. And he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looked up to heaven, and he blessed the food and broke the loaves, and he kept giving them to the disciples to set before them, and he divided up the 2 fish among them all, and they all ate and were satisfied. And they picked up 12 baskets of the broken pieces and also of the fish, and there were 5,000 men who ate the loaves. Okay. This is one of the things from the ministry of Jesus, one of the rare things that is included in all 4 Gospels. This was a moment of that gave Jesus a great deal of celebrity. And you can imagine 5,000 men, how many women and children, perhaps an equal number of each. We're talking about a crowd of maybe 15,000 people, even more. And of course, they came from everywhere. And they went back home, and they told everybody about what had happened. So this is duly famous. Remember, Mark's gospel is fast-paced and it's short. What Matthew makes clear is that the apostles are gone a long time before they come back to Jesus. But everyone agrees the apostles have come back from the missionary journey when they make this trip, and then Jesus feeds the 5,000, and they don't have time to eat, and they don't have food in their own baskets because Jesus told them not to take any baskets, and they just need time to rest. Jesus recognizes this, but the people are there and need to be taught, and Jesus has compassion on them. Let's notice this. When we are given a motivating factor for Jesus' actions, every time but one, we already mentioned that one time when we're told Jesus was angry. Every time but one, it is because he feels compassion. And that word in Greek means a gut feeling, a feeling in your gut. It is that pure feeling of altruism that is hardwired into us by God that Satan can tamp down, but he cannot adulterate and warp. And we all have it. And when Jesus acted, he acted based upon his compassion. Because he saw them like sheep without a shepherd. It's interesting that in Matthew's gospel, Jesus has this feeling before he sends the 12 out. In fact, that's the reason why he sends the 12 out. He immediately sends them out after he has this feeling of compassion, and he still has it after the apostles have come back. And yeah, of course, we get details in John's gospel that Matthew, writing so many years after Mark is putting this down, fills in blanks for us because he has access to the other gospels clearly. and lets us know that there was a little boy there who would share his lunch, and that these were barley loaves, the food of the poorest people. And he gives us all those details, that Andrew was the one who found the little boy. And of course, from Matthew and Luke, we know that the conversation was involved a lot more. And I need to stop for just a second and talk about two Latin phrases that come into play when we talk about Scripture and inspiration. And one is ipsissima verba and one is ipsissima vox. And it's something that we use as well when we're telling stories. Ipsissima verba means the very words, and ipsissima vox means the very voice. And sometimes the Bible writers are giving us the quotes. And sometimes they're saying, well, they said, send these guys away. And he said, no, this is your responsibility. And we tell stories that very way. We do the very same thing in our everyday speech. Sometimes we do not give verbatim what everyone said in their conversations back and forth. We say things like, she was insisting that I go, and I was saying, there's no way. And of course, that was not the sum total of the conversation. But we accept ipsissima vox as a way to communicate truth. And so in our own communication, we should accept it in Scripture. And Peter, Mark, is using ipsissima vox. We wanted them to be sent away, but he told us it was our responsibility. And then we found out we had this food. We get, they recline on the green grass. I wish they would translate, they recline in garden rows in their companies of 50 and 100. Jesus blesses. There's a sacramental, I don't mean this in a liturgical way, but there's something very holy about, something that connects with the Lord's Supper forward and connects back with the Passover in this meal. And he just keeps passing them out. And the end has these two sweet twists, almost like in an O. Henry story, which is something that Mark does as a storyteller. And there's two here. One is that there were 5,000 men. We get a sense of the enormity of the crowd at the very end. We didn't realize the crowd was that big, 15,000 people, maybe more. And then they collect 12 baskets full. So the apostles who had empty fanny packs, Jews would carry koffinus, which is where we get our word coffin, boxes, little boxes. They were very much like fanny packs. And they would keep kosher food in them, so they'd have something to eat in case they got out where they couldn't buy kosher food. And theirs were empty because Jesus said don't take them, and they didn't have anything to eat. And now they wanted these people to go away. Jesus said, no, it's your responsibility to serve them, to feed them. And in the serving of them, their baskets, 12, their baskets are now full. And that's the big lesson, that service fills us up. It doesn't drain us. And it's such an amazing account. It's no doubt why it ends up in all four Gospels. Well, thank you for joining me for what is now 8.5 good minutes with the Word. Next time, we're going to pick up with verse 45.